Hey guys, XOJet here, and today I have something super awesome to show you guys. It is this 6x6 piston door right here, and today I had the tutorial because I uploaded a showcase video by KP Killer and I think it was Els. Yeah, KP Killer and Els. They made a video. This is the smallest current 6x6 right here, but it's 950 blocks by me, and it's 10 across, only 5 wide, and 19 tall, so it's very small, and we'll be doing a tutorial. So let me show it opening and closing real quick if you haven't seen that before. Few properties that are really cool about this door is that I got the sides very clean. They don't like spam open closed. It's nice and not too slow. It's a little slow on the bottom, but there's not too much to fix about it. Few things is like it uses a few mine carts. I don't see that as a problem. No one that I talk to really cares too much about that. Some people just don't like using mine carts in their builds. And so this one does because it's so ridiculously small. I didn't really find a way to not use them. For a lot of people that's not a problem, and so this 6x6 will fit very nicely in their world. And this is an explanation video, so I'll be explaining how it works and also a tutorial. And one more thing is that this piston door works in pretty much all the versions of Minecraft, like pretty much 1.5 and up, where like comparators were introduced and all that. It pretty much works in all of those. In some versions it works more reliably than others. Like I had this on Bucket, or maybe it was Spigot, kind of the same thing, and it was just the first few versions of Spigot 1.8, and it kept breaking unreliably. But then 1.8.6 came out and it kind of fixed, and now it never breaks. So that's just something to, like, a heads up. It doesn't work too well in a few versions, and I'm not too sure why, but it does work reliably in pretty much most of them. So let's go ahead and jump straight into this tutorial. The layout is pistons on this side for these side pistons, pistons on this side here, 6 of them in a 6x6 area like this, 5 wide here, and you will have 4 pistons and then an air block. You have these 4 blocks here and 4 pistons. All pistons right now are sticky. There's a few not sticky pistons, but I'll point those out later. These here, these blocks here, and these pistons here. On the top you will have blocks here, blocks there, these pistons which are storage, and 4 pistons on the top. And on the bottom there is a piston tape, and the piston tape is this sticky piston, this regular piston here. Make sure that it's pointing like this side, so if the storage on your bottom is here, if these pistons are here, make sure you have a sticky piston here and a regular piston in line with these pistons on this side, and on the other side have a regular piston and a regular piston placed here and here. So it might be a little bit confusing to get that right, but I'm sure you guys will manage to figure that out. And so that is the layout. I'm going to be doing this in one take because I don't really have a good video editor right now, so if I mess up, well then I mess up. I can't really do too much about that. So the input is going to be on this side, and just make sure that if you have your storage on this side on the bottom, have the storage blocks here also on the same side, just like that. And so your input is going to be this lever, and you can input it anywhere into this block here or anywhere there. What I have is a lever, a block, which is just a lamp just for show, and a torch which will power this block. So this is really the most important block to start off, and that's where the signal comes in. You can also power it with a repeater or a dust or I don't think you can use a dust because there will be a dust here. You have to strongly power it with a repeater, and so that is your input. So you place 2 blocks here, dust, go up torch, another block, a torch like this to the side, and place it again because these pistons will one tick. If you don't actually place it twice, it doesn't really matter. Another torch there. And I'm just going to keep looking back and forth because I have not looked at this too often, and I will be doing this in one take, so excuse me for all of that. Place a dropper here and a hopper here, and this will come in handy later. Go ahead and place any item in there, and let me fix up my inventory a little. Place a comparator there, a block here, or no, place a dropper here and a hopper here, and place a strong item in there, anything like a wooden axe or a sword, something that will not stack. So if I try to stack a sword or a axe, it will not stack, but see, you have 54 dirt there. That's what I mean by stackable or not stackable, and a comparator there. So this is a very strange dual edge, and what I mean by dual edge is it'll pulse once when you turn it on and once when you turn it off. So this is the side pistons on the left, right here. There we go. And that right there will close off, we'll do these pistons. And this torch will power this dropper and go through that comparator and power this dropper and power this. So this right here will pulse once. And then when I turn this off, this torch will turn on, which will power this dropper, which will power this, and will pulse once. So that's how you get pulses to go through, and that is a dual edge, and I will come back to this later. And so that is most of the red input circuit. I will come back to just a little bit more of it later. So what we do is you place a block here, and a dust here, and a 1-tick repeater there. So that's the red circuit. Let me go ahead and move up to the blue circuit. And the blue circuit is the top piston quad. Place a piston here, a block there on top of that sticky piston, a 1-tick repeater, and well, we're gonna jump straight into the green circuit, which is all of the storage. The storage is these pistons, and I will explain how everything works in it. So go ahead and place a dust there, a 1-tick repeater, and I just realized something. Before I continue, I'm going to be showing how to power and input all of these pistons. So you place 2 blocks here like that and put redstone dust, and every time you power this right here, like so, like there we go. Let me fix that for 1 second. Oops. There we go. So let me go ahead and remove some of these blocks. Every time I power that, it will power all 4 of these pistons. So that's how I power that storage. Also, I'm going to go ahead and show you how I power the bottom pistons and everything else. So go ahead and place blocks like this with dust, come down 1, repeater, and block there. Come down here, put a repeater, and a repeater, another repeater, with some dust. Bring it down 1, like so. Come back up, go up again, and place slabs here, and a slab there, and a block there. So place dust on all 4 of those. And what happens here is when I power this, all 4 of these pistons will power, and I can do that twice. And the reason why, if you see here, this repeater powers this piston here, and the reason why it doesn't pulse is because there's this dust here which powers this piston. This piston will be extended when this one fires, so this one will never get a chance to fire. And so that's how the storage works, and very strange and unsynchronized way, but it's the only way to get it 5 wide, or one of the only ways to get it 5 wide. And so that is how I got that. And to power these bottom pistons, it's even a little bit stranger. Let me look here for a second. Yeah, so you place a dust here, which will power that piston. Then you come down one, place a repeater here with a block here to power the next piston. Go down one further, place a dust, and so you don't power this piston, make sure that's a slab, and because it's a slab, this dust will not power that piston. A repeater there, and a dust here, right here, and much later we'll need a furnace here, so go ahead and place a furnace right there, and that will come in handy later. It has no real use now, but I will explain it later. And so place a repeater here, grab a block and place a block there. That will power that piston. And one last thing would be this, power that and put a block there and cut this signal off. So this dust will power that last piston there. So that's how the storage works. And if I power this, which I'm not going to power right now because some other things will fire, some of these pistons will fire, and the way to stop those pistons from firing is you fire the top pistons before, so then they won't be able to extend when you power this row. They will not be able to extend. Hope that made some sense, and that powered that. So now you guys know what all of this does, and I'll be going on to this, which is how I powered the other pistons. And right now I'm just going to do it all in wool. Later I'm going to have to replace a lot of these with hoppers and other blocks, but I will come back to that later. And just go ahead and place one tick repeater here. These ones should all be on 3 ticks, and there's a reason for that. It's just simply how they're powered, and they should all be 3 ticks. As you can see in the completed version here, there will be hoppers on that row, but I will do that later. So I'll go ahead and do that later and not worry about it now. So just a few more things for the input wise. There will be this row of redstone dust, and that bottom row of redstone dust, and this row of redstone dust. That will power everything you need for the quad. And this part, I like it to be blue. The colors really don't matter too much. So it's going to be these repeaters and this redstone dust. And you guys might be wondering, so how do I power these pistons? And it's actually due to this bud right here. These redstone dust will power this block, which will diagonally power this piston, and I can either not give it an update and these will not power, or give it an update and these will power. And it's kind of a weird timing where these will power with these ones and some weird budding. So that's how I power these pistons. And so that's how all the inputs work. And so let's continue on with the green circuit. Go ahead and place a block here. That will come in handy later. And what you need now is a block and a repeater, another block here, and that will be changed later. A lot of things that I'm building now will be changed later, but that's okay. And so this dust will come up here and power all of this. Now here you need to update this piston whenever these ones fire, and there's a few ways to do this. And one way that works for me sometimes is just a dust right there. That generally can work. Now sometimes, because of strange update orders, this dust will power first, then these dust here will power, and something very strange happens where these pistons will not receive the update. And, well, I can show you guys that. And so first, right now, just power these because that'll just come in handy. And go ahead and remove these 4 blocks like so, and power this with just like a 1-tick pulse. And you can see that these did fire. If all of these blocks move down, then this is working properly. So you don't have to worry about any of that. Now remove this, and if you power it again, you see this will retract, and because the block was moving, then these pistons fired, this piston was not able to extend, therefore there was no one tick, and so it did not break. Kind of a complicated explanation. Now if you are building it in a place where this does not work, I will explain how to fix it, and there's a few ways to do it, and I'll show you guys that later. Now, what you need to do is go ahead and retract all of these, because I'm just showing, you don't actually have to, if you're building this in survival, you don't have to test all of these things exactly. They're just good to make sure that your door is in a location where it will work. This door isn't locational, but in a few places you have to just make sure that everything's working, because Minecraft can be weird like that. So, let's continue on. This is most of the green circuit, but it's not all of it. So let's go ahead and finish all of it, which is a comparator there, and a slab here, and a slab so that it does not power these pistons later, so this dust won't interact with these pistons when they're down, and a comparator here because I will be giving these pulses, and when it receives those, it either can accept those pulses or not. And I just realized that this can be a block. I thought it needed to be a slab, but I was wrong. And so what happens is you place a piston here and another piston here. This piston can either face out, oh, and it's a regular piston. This can face out or in, or like that. It's your choice. I just prefer out for some reason. That's just visual. And a block will go here. So what happens is if you power this and then retract it, which I'm not going to do, it will power this and go through the comparator, and then if you have this dust pointing into this block, we'll power this again. And so what happens is this will retract, and there was a little bit of lag there. This will retract the redstone block, and let's pretend that's the redstone block. It will retract it, power all of this, and extend it very quickly again. And so that will give a 1-tick pulse through a comparator. But then laterwards, there's going to be some 1-tick pulses going into here, and what the comparator does is comparators don't accept 1-tick pulses from repeaters. It's just one of those things that comparators have. It's one of their properties, and so it will help greatly with that, because this repeater, I can use this dust for other things, like I'll show you guys later, but it will not interact with the storage. And so that's how the storage works. Now let's move up to this part here, which is the blue circuit, which is the quad. And so the quad is the top 4 pistons, this large block of pistons here, and how it works is very, very interesting. So from that repeater, place a block there. Here you want to place a piston, a cauldron, and block of water, a comparator here, a block, and a block there, a dust and a block. And so that may have done quite a few things, and throughout this tutorial this may happen a lot, so you'll just be fixing pistons a lot, and so you normally don't have to worry about it, because it will save you a lot of time, because realigning all these pistons takes a lot more time, and you may not have to keep doing it. So what happens is this is a falling edge. When this turns on, nothing will really happen. The piston will just extend. When it retracts, it will retract this cauldron and give a 1-tick through this comparator. Now it will go through this repeater, and this is a slab, and what the slab will do is go up here and power this row. So, and just go ahead and block that off so that this dust does not interact with that dust. So from here you will go up, and it's gonna be yellow later because it also has to do with other circuits. So this repeater will go up and here and will not interact with this storage. Now you send a 2-tick here and block, and so what this will do is a double piston extender where the top piston fires and the bottom piston fires and retracts, because this is with pulses. Then you place a block here, and this dust will send a pulse to this 3-tick repeater and a dust there. So what this will do is send the piston back up, and to grab the very last block you place a dust here, block it off, and this repeater will power that, and a 4-tick repeater there, and that will grab the very last block. So that is a double extender. So that is just this part here, this blue part here, and that will only happen when I open the door. So this yellow is part of the refiring circuit, but we're not quite there yet. So what you want is to get these top two double piston extender to work, and how to do that is like so. You go ahead and place a torch. Oh no, it's a redstone dust, a torch. I haven't built this door in a while, so this tutorial is going to be a little bit strange like this. So it's going to be a torch and a repeater on one tick. And if you have a block here, and if you go ahead and update that piston there, you will see that everything there gets powered. And so when this extends, when this turns on here from the red circuit, when this all turns on, this will turn off and fire the storage. So that's how I got the storage to fire. And if you see here, this piston is extended, but it will turn off when this torch turns off, and then turn on when this torch turns on, and go here and send this one tick pulse. So you have one pulse to fire these pistons, and then fire these pistons. Then this will go through here and turn off, and fire through here, and send another pulse through these back pistons, and at the same time fire a pulse down. So the block will go down and left, like left that way. And so the closing is pretty much done. It will close, and this will fire, these pistons will fire again, but it won't actually do anything because there will be no blocks to push or pull. And so that is how the closing works. Now, you go ahead and place a torch here, and what this torch does is when the pulses that go through all of this here, like from this piston, it will go up and around and go through these 4-tick repeaters, and it will go ahead and power these droppers, this dropper, and this torch will be on, not off, but on. And when you put a block in here, or an item in here, the item will go through and get locked, and then this torch will be locking this hopper and will power this comparator. Now add a little bit of delay because it's needed, and a piston with a redstone block like so. This piston will go ahead and power these pistons. And the reason why we power it through here is because this can be reused several times. You can send multiple pulses to that piston from this corner without really affecting too much else. And it also, this torch will not always be on, because when I refire this circuit, this will be off, so it will be a nice 3-tick pulse, which is very useful, but when it's on, it'll be solid. So that's what that does. And let me just go ahead and look a little bit more. So it will go into a 2 and 3-tick repeater. So this will go into a 2-tick repeater, and go ahead and use yellow wool if you're doing this for these blocks, because this is part of the refiring and it will come in handy later. But right now it just kind of looks a bit weird, but it's going to be a 2-tick repeater here and a 3-tick repeater there. And so what this does is it powers this line, and it keeps it on for quite a while. And then if you give it the 3-tick pulse from that dropper, it'll go through this piston very quickly, because pistons can bring down a 3-tick pulse down to a like 1.5-ish tick pulse, and because droppers are very weird and they have about a 3.5 tick pulse, this will be like a 2-tick pulse type thing. It's kind of weird. Just kind of go with it if you don't quite understand what I'm saying. And this block will go into this repeater and give a pulse and turn off. This repeater will turn off. Then this one will turn on and give a pulse. So you get 2 pulses when I refire it, which is very useful because it's going to be like pulse here, then pulse there. And that will help with all of this. And so you place a block here and a piston, make sure it's sticky, and place something like a glass block or a transparent block like a slab, or a piston, or a block that will not really interact with this redstone. So if I have a solid block here and I extend this piston, you see this line here got redirected. That is bad. So we want to have a glass block or a transparent block that will not cut off that signal there. And this is mostly all for updates. This will help update the pistons because we are messing around with a lot of buds here. So that will help update. This is most of the quad done. This is like the closing for the top is pretty much done already. So let's go ahead and show that. The left side and the top should close. And here we go. And so, yep, the whole thing closed. These 3 blocks are down. Now if I open it, that double extender will fire, and so that was the double extender here that I was talking about, and not too much else really happened. Go ahead and reset your pistons, like so. Nom Nom will help do that. And so, we go ahead and place a torch here, a repeater on just 1 tick here. Oops, not a dust. If you ever have a piston here, to fix it, you can try doing that. Just pulse it really quickly, because what happens is this piston can extend, and when you retract it and you power it fast enough again, what happens is it doesn't extend again, but the piston under it extends. And this is what the quad is based off of, because this piston has not extended yet, and that piston just finished extending. So what the game does is extend this one instead of that one, and this is completely reliable and works very often. And so that is how this quad works, and that's pretty much how all quads ever really kind of work. And so what we use here is a 1 tick repeater, a 4 tick repeater, and a dust there. Now here you place a a comparator and a dust there, and put this in subtract mode. Make sure this little bulb here is on. And so what happens is this is like a monostable. And if you place this into here, what happens is when I power this and this gets locked and powered for a long time, this right here will all turn off. Then when it turns on, this will power, and then this will power and stop this from powering. So it'll give a 3 tick pulse right here. And so this 3 tick pulse will go around and do refire through all of this and pretty much go ahead and almost finish the quad. There's still a few pulses missing, but then it's still a 3 tick pulse when it comes around, and this torch will turn off for 3 ticks. But this is a 4 tick repeater, and when you're turning off a 4 tick repeater, if you don't turn it off for a full 4 ticks, this repeater won't be able to turn off. So this right here will stay on and will not keep clocking around and around. It will just fire once and stop. So that is most of the quad done, but just a few more pulses. You need a 2 tick repeater, a 4 tick repeater, a block there, and this should be a slab because we will be placing a torch here and we don't want this dust to be powered. Now we'll need some hoppers. So let me fly around here and see how these hoppers are aligned. So right here you want to place a hopper pointing that way. As you can see, the little nose is there. This hopper should be pointing this way, and this hopper should be pointing that way. Now a dropper pointing this way with its hole pointing like this way. So the item will go around this way, which is clockwise, or yeah, clockwise, I think. Yeah, it's clockwise. So now we need a 4 tick repeater, and this just comes in handy later. Placing this later would be rather difficult. So what you need is a 4 tick repeater, a block here, and what this does is actually fires the bottom piston tape, but it also does the pulses here for this quad. So a 4 tick repeater, a torch, and I'm just gonna have to keep looking back and forth. Oh, it's actually a dust. Oh, a dust with a torch here. See that? Grab the block so you power it again, and place a block there so this dust will not interact with this dust, and a block on here. So when this 4 tick repeater turns off, it'll give 2 pulses through this almost burnout. It's really just a clock. So it'll fire and fire twice and stop firing. So it will never really burn out. Now that is pretty much the whole quad done. Let's see if it's done or if I forgot something. I do think it's pretty much done. So there we go. It's closed. And the block should retract all the way to there. Perfect. And you see it goes all the way up. That's the quad. So what happens now is if I refire the quad, which is this yellow circuit, with a pulse that goes here, it will go through, and when it unpowers this repeater, it will do the storage, and then it will go, the storage will go through and power this dropper and refire the whole quad again. So this is the quad and the storage completely done. All I need is just a few more pulses to here, I believe 2 more pulses to here, to fire the quad a second time and a third time. That is all. So the quad is nearly done. So go ahead and replace these blocks here. And now we'll be doing the side pistons here, which I colored in purple because they're the side pistons. They're purple. And so what we'll need is this very interesting dropper thing that I found. It's not something that I invented, but I think it was something very useful and a very interesting trick. And because I'm on a server, the placement of droppers is a little bit weird, so I'm gonna have to do a few things to get the placement right. Okay, so 2 1-tick repeaters, and so what happens is this repeater actually can power this dropper. It actually does. It may not look like it, but it really does power this dropper. And so when this fires up, you'll get 1 pulse. When the quad does its closing, it'll get another pulse. So this dropper, when you're closing the door, will get 2 pulses. So you put 2 items in. Now when I refire the quad, I only fire the storage once, so it only gets 1 pulse any other time. So it only gets 2 pulses when I'm closing the door. Now what happens is when I open the door, I'll get a few pulses from one from this repeater and 1 from this torch here. So the 2 items go back. And then when I refire the quad, only 1 item will go through and not the other. So then both of these this dropper will fire twice, so it'll send the item back and then just click once because it doesn't have anything to send back. And so what happens is when I close the door, this comparator will turn off. When I open the door, this comparator will turn on and never turn off again. It just will not flicker. This comparator is just like this lever. This lever is on. When it turns off, this comparator will turn off, and when it turns on, after a little bit of delay, it'll turn on. So what happens now is we are going to power these side pistons, which also helps with the piston tape, which I feel like I should explain now because before I start adding too many things, it's nice to explain the piston tape. So you place a torch here and a comparator there, and it's comparator because if we had a repeater, the torch wouldn't really accept the signals. Comparators and torches work very similarly, and they would have kind of weird things with repeaters. So you place a slab here and a torch there. Now what you do is place a dust there, and let me just look at this real quick. This dust should be on a slab, and that's for later because we don't want it to power some other things. And a comparator here with a hopper, and let me check how many items. 1 strong item. So go ahead and place 1 not stackable item, and that will power all 3 of these dusts. So when I place a redstone block here, this dust is on. Nothing will really happen, as you can see here. So that just nothing really happens at all. When I place a regular block, what ends up happening is, I'm just going to remove that for you guys to see. When I place a regular block, it will cut off the signal. That will allow this torch to pulse, and then after 1 tick of delay, this torch to pulse. So the block will move from there to here. And that is how the tape works, and it'll just keep going around until the redstone block comes, and it'll stop. So this is a self-stopping piston tape. Because when there's solid blocks, it will go, but the redstone block being a block that powers this dust and transparent doesn't really do too much. And so that is good to know. But to fire this this piston tape, you have to pulse this piston here, like so, and then power this piston quickly. And then this right here will retract the block and push the block all the way over. The block will show up on this end and do the tape things. So that is how the tape works. So let's go ahead and do the sides. And what this torch here does is power that that piston, so that when the time is right, it will set up the blocks for the piston tape. So that's how I power that piston there for the tape. So what you want is a dust on top of that block there with another block there and a torch. A piston pointing down here with a redstone block. So if this piston extends and retracts, you see it will power this. And then you also want a slab, or I'm wrong here, it's a block and a dust. Yes, a dust. And that will power these three pistons here. And then a block there and a torch. So this right here will power all of the side pistons. Now this torch also locks up this hopper for the timing for this dropper. I think I'm actually not so completely sure, because the timings are a little bit strange, and I built this a little while ago, so I might be a little bit wrong. That's the general concept. So here you will need a strong item and a comparator here, dust, and another dust there, another dust there, and a piston here. You want this to be a bud and a redstone block there. So this right here will power that piston. Then then a piston here, and that'll just update this, or else this piston could extend and that piston would not receive an update, so nothing would really happen. But with this piston, it'll help update, and this piston will update that one. So a lot of updating things here. So when the item goes around, it will send a pulse down and fire the piston tape. Just a little bit more to finish up these side pistons. You want a slab right there, so this dust will not be cut off. And here you just want some purple blocks if you're color coding this. You don't actually have to color code this, it's just easier to keep organized and you kind of know what's going on. So one tick repeater here, another repeater there, and when you power that dust, all of these sides retract. And because of this very nice item system, the sides will not continuously like opening and closing, so it keeps the sides nice and clean. So that is the side pistons and the piston tape done. The thing is, the right side of the piston tape, there's still the other side of the piston tape, and the thing is, when the quad fires, the item actually, like this repeater, will power this dropper more than once. So this will just keep going a few times. I think it'll pulse like 3 times, but only the first one is important, and the other 2 are timed in such a way that like these 4 ticks here, they can actually be less, but they're timed in such a way that if this piston powers more than once, it will not screw up the piston tape, which is a little bit of careful timing, and it's almost done. So now let's go ahead and do the yellow circuit, which will simply refire this quad 2 more times. So what you need here is a dropper and a hopper, and 1 item in there, a yellow blocks. Go ahead and do a comparator there to receive the pulse here, a repeater here on 2, then 4, and a slab here with a repeater on 4. So what happens here is when this powers and stays on, this right here will pulse or when this turns off and stays off, this will pulse, but then this will also pulse and lock the pulse. So on this end of the repeater here, like if I had a piston here, this piston will not pulse the first time, but this right here will clock around and go again, and the second time this will not pulse because it does not clock around a third or second timer. It just won't keep clocking. So this only pulses once, so this repeater only gets locked once, so then the next time around this dropper will send the pulse, and that's an extra amount of delay, and it works very nicely. So what we use here is now a piston and a cauldron, like so, and a bucket of water. Oops, I broke the cauldron. 1 second, folks. There we go. Let's go ahead and fill up that cauldron, and now what happens is a very interesting amount of hoppers and droppers in like this very strange pattern, and I can explain how it all works. So this right here right now is a slab, but we're gonna go ahead and remove that. That was just for testing to make sure my quad was working. What we do now, and make sure no items fall onto these repeaters, because those items will get caught into the hoppers and will go into this dropper. And if they're not strong items, if they're not unstackable, then all of this will like absolutely mess up, and you might not know why your door just keeps breaking, and that could be the reason. So always keep checking your droppers and your hoppers. So this right here torch will just lock this hopper, and that's not actually something that we use, but we do use this hopper here. And what this hopper does is it has 2 items. So you go ahead and place 2 items, and as you can see here, it is locked from this comparator. This hopper will not give out any of its items. And let me go ahead and pick up a dropper. So you place a dropper pointing up here, and so what ends up happening is this right here will simply not give its item through. And then when I close this up, this right here will turn off, and so these 2 items will go through and be in this dropper. Then when nothing will really happen, because this yellow circuit does not pulse when the door is closed. So when I open the door again, I unflick the lever, and this right here sends a pulse down and through. This comparator will take the pulse, and there will be 2 items in here. So the items will go up and around and come back into this hopper, but then be locked, because this now is locked. So the item will stay locked in here and get another, so then you only have 1 item in here. The quad will refire, you'll get another pulse here, and this right here will send its item up, go around, and the item will get locked in this hopper again, and then the 3rd time this pulses, just nothing will happen because there is no items left in this dropper, and then no pulse will be sent around, and the quad will stop. And that's how I got the quad to stop. So what you do here is you just place another hopper, I believe, yeah. So you need 3 more hoppers here. You place a hopper there, pointing into that hopper, and a hopper going straight down, and a hopper pointing there. So that is how the item goes around. And just because this hopper here is locked from that torch, you can place 1 more item in here, but it's not actually like used. It's just there because the way the items flow, you just kind of need 1 more. And don't forget about the dust that was updating your pistons here, because you still need to place that dust on top of that hopper. So make sure you have 1 item in here. It's not really used, it's just there because you kind of need it. And 2 items here, and these are the ones that will cycle around. And so, almost done with the entire quad, firing all the times. So, comparator. Oh, and use a slab because we don't want this dust to power this dropper. Make sure that dust does not power this dropper. So slab, dust, a block there, another comparator. And the reason why it's a comparator is because there's a dust here, and we do not want this comparator to power that whole gray line right there. So make sure it does not. power that, you have a torch pointing up here, and here we can swap some of these out for yellow blocks, because go ahead and switch this out for yellow, and place a 3-tick repeater. Go ahead and remove this, place a dropper there, and a hopper here, and go ahead and place this 3-tick repeater back. So what ends up happening is we have an item stuck in here. This item is locked by this repeater. When this repeater turns off, the item will go into the dropper, and a comparator here, and so this comparator will pick up the item in here and send the power to this dust and this torch and do the quad again. And then when this piston extends, it will power this repeater, power this dropper, and go back into the hopper and stay in the hopper, because this repeater is on. So this hopper is locked. And the reason why we do this is because the hopper is very useful, because we don't want to power this dust. And the other thing is the time that it takes to go around and power all of this, and then the dropper turns off, is the amount of time that the quad here needs to extend all the way down, and then the second the item goes back, the quad will retract all the way back up. So we do need a lot of delay, actually, a little over 10 ticks, I believe, for this quad to extend and retract. And what this dropper hopper does is make sure that the quad gets the delay it needs. So that is the full quad if I did not screw anything up. Now I've just been checking my work, making sure I haven't made any major mistakes, and from what I can tell, I do believe that is the top done. So let's go ahead and move down to the bottom. So we're going to come here where this comparator was, and this is where the dual edge from the beginning of the video that I was talking about comes in. So this dust right here that this comparator powers will go here into a slab here, and it's a slab so that it doesn't interact with any of these pistons, and a redstone block right there. Now what we need is a very strange piston setup type thing, where it goes a piston, a block here, then a piston pointing up, and a piston pointing down. And make sure these two here are regular pistons. And so the top one just updates the bottom one, and the bottom one is actually not a regular piston, it's a sticky piston. And we'll go ahead and move into the orange circuit, which is the bottom closing. So there it is. That's move this block. So when this piston extends, that one will retract quickly, and when it retracts, that will also retract quickly. And this piston is just for updating. And so this one actually updates the next piston, which is going to be placed here, and it can be a regular piston. Let me go ahead and pull out a regular piston. And so if this gets a 3-tick pulse, as you can see here, oh, that's not a 3-tick pulse, that's a 3-tick pulse, that gets a very short pulse. And the reason why that is because of the amount of delay that this updater thing here has, because when this piston's moving, it will retract instantly and not update this. Then when the block arrives here, it still won't update this, and then this piston extends, then this piston right here will update and get a very short pulse. And so let's go ahead and continue with our orange wool. So you want to place a piston right there, a regular piston. So this piston will push the cauldron down, and this piston will send the cauldron back up. And this part is simply just a comparator and a dust right there. So this, when this comparator, when this cauldron comes down, comparator will take it, push this piston back up, and this will turn off, giving me a very short 1-tick pulse through a comparator. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys the pink circuit, because it's always nice to show the tape without too much things surrounding it, so you guys really understand what the tape is doing. So go ahead and place a pink block there with a torch here. That will just power this piston. Then we have a comparator here, and a pink block there, and a dropper, and a hopper. And here you want a 3-tick repeater, a dust there, make sure you have a slab here so that this dust does not get cut off, and a torch on that block there. So if I get a, let me remove some blocks here. So if a block from the other side travels in and lands here, it will get powered by, the torch will power this dust, or if it's a redstone block, it'll just also power this dust. Go here and power this bottom dropper, which will extend and, or not extend, but give the item up to this hopper. This comparator will power and will turn off this torch, and my words are starting to like slur, but this piston right here will retract, this piston right here will extend, and it will just like keep clocking. So I'll show you that because this repeater is on, that piston will extend, and didn't work because I forgot an item. Go ahead and place any item in there, and there we go. So it'll just extend and reset itself like that. Make sure nothing's broken. So here we have the entire automatic clock. So I'm just gonna move the block up and just power that quickly, and you can see this piston tape will just go around, it'll just keep going, and when the redstone block hits here, it'll just keep going until the redstone comes all the way back, and it will power this dust, which will stop the clock. There we go. Self-stopping clock. Very, very tiny and very, very convenient. So this comparator here will pulse and send a pulse through this repeater, and it does actually power this dropper hopper. And what's interesting is, even though this dropper hopper is part of the tape, I use it as if it was part of the orange. So this pulse here will go into the storage, and what we want here is a repeater on 2, a block here, another repeater on 2, and a piston there, and a redstone block there, and a slab and a dust. So what ends up happening here is when this pulse here goes, it will fire the storage, then go up this dropper, up this comparator, turn off the torch there, that torch there, and retract this piston, and then these two tick repeaters will power, and this piston will extend, and it'll give a 1-tick pulse. Very interesting. And so that is how I got a 1-tick pulse to go to here. And so the blocks will come out and a 1-tick pulse here. And what I do is I also power the bottom storage at the same time that I extend these ones. So make sure you have a slab here, and what the slab does is not power that dust, not to power this repeater, and just another dust here. So that right here will power this, but we don't always want to power that storage. So for example, if I'm doing the blue quad circuit and I power this line, it would also go down through this repeater, and so to stop that, you place a torch here and a piston here and a block here to cut that off. And when the 2-tick pulse is going through all of these, that torch will turn off and this piston will retract in time for this pulse to go through, but extend when this pulse does not want to be like fed back into the orange. But surprisingly enough, I actually do reuse it laterwards when, if I power this, then that piston would retract, and then I can send a pulse back through the orange if needed, but under normal circumstances won't. I don't know if that made too much sense, and if it didn't, then just don't worry about it too much, just kind of know that it works very nicely. And it's also incredibly complicated in that very, very, very tiny little space. So what this comparator also powers is this dust, which also powers this 3-tick repeater, which goes into this dust, which powers this piston with a block on its face, and just put the block there. Go ahead and place a torch on this, and a comparator here, and this comparator is what, so basically, the closing is practically done. The storage will fire, the blocks will be moved up, and the storage will fire again. Then what you need is to push like a double extender, but with the bottom 2 here. And it goes in such a way that when that happens, like when these fire, when both like the opening and the closing, it'll like set itself up for the piston tape. So this orange doesn't just do the orange, but it gets the pistons ready for the piston tape, and that's kind of what this part here does. So what we want is a slab here. Later this will be a large row of hoppers, but just for now, just because we're testing these things, go ahead and use a slab. So what we need is, let me look at the timings. It's a 3 tick. No, it's very hard to get in here and figure out what timings these are. So 2 tick and 3 tick. So let me go ahead and get some repeaters. Make sure I didn't click anything. So a 2 tick, 3 tick, and a 2 tick there. So 2 tick, 3 tick. Now, when this 3 tick comes from this repeater here, it will power the piston, and when it retracts, it will go back. And then what we want is for that piston to extend again, and the way we do that is with a comparator here and a cauldron here with some water in the cauldron, and so that piston will extend. And this right here is the exact right delay for that comparator there to accept the pulse and for it to be a very, very short pulse, which is very important because we will be sending that pulse up one thing of torches. So this is actually part of the blue, and this will come in handy later, but it also comes in handy now. So just as of right now, just power that comparator and go ahead and set it to, and it's cyan wool. Make sure this is cyan wool if you care about how you are color coding this. If you don't care, then it doesn't really matter. So let's go ahead and set this into subtract mode, and just for now, just power that. We'll work with this later. We can turn off this torch to give us some more pulses, but just for now, just keep that on. Nom Nom's placing a dust there. That'll come in handy later. So a torch here and a go ahead and fix this. I just didn't want this to pulse and go through. So this way here will send a 1 tick through that comparator, and up this torch and up into the storage. So it's a very specific delay pulse, and that's why we have this comparator here to give a very specific time of delay. And these 2 repeaters will go ahead and power, and this is why this row is on 3, so that if I power both of these lines at the exact same time, it will go and power the bottom ones and the top ones both, and do it in that specific order. But we're not quite done yet because this powers only once, and we need it to go twice. So what ends up happening is, from right here, from this input block here, when it receives the pulse from all of this on top here, when it receives that repeater there, we also send a pulse to here, and it's done like so. You place a forgetting my things, dropper there with a dust here and a hopper here like so, and just any old item there, and go ahead and place a comparator and make sure you replace everything with your dust. And so that goes twice actually, so it'll power this thing twice with enough delay. And I do believe that the closing for this door is actually done. Let me go ahead and check it. So there we go. That's the closing for the door. And what you'll also end up seeing is that these pistons are up here. Now on the other way down, when the blocks are coming back, you'll see when I open the door, you see the same thing happens, but you see the piston tape could have fired here. I just removed the blocks for to show you guys, but as you can see, the piston tape is ready, and the quad's also working very beautifully here. Just make sure everything's working. So yes, if the blocks are set up right, if I had the piston tape in the quad, the top quad would have worked perfectly, and so would have the piston tape. Piston tape is working right now, and it just didn't work because I had removed this layer of blocks, which we need. Nom Nom will go ahead and reset everything for me, as you can see, and that is the pretty much most of the opening and closing. Very, very nice. Now, last thing we need to do is the quad, which I actually somehow managed to fit in just this size right here. This is the amount of space that I was left to work with for the quad, and I managed to suck it in right into there. And that's why I have these hopper minecarts, because there's really tight on space here. This is really getting cramped. So when this redstone block is almost done from its piston tape, when it reaches right there, what we do is we give this a dropper, and you see the redstone block is on top of this dropper. And what ends up happening is that that dropper gets placed, gets powered. So this will place a piston here, and when that redstone block is there, that piston will extend and update this dropper right here. So if I have an item in here and go ahead and place a non-stackable item, it will get sent through to here. And let's go ahead and fix everything up. So that is how I start the quad. So when the piston tape is going around, and when the piston tape's done, it will power this dropper and start the quad, which is perfect. So we go ahead and place a comparator here. Now the placement of all these droppers and hoppers is going to be very tricky, and I'm not too sure what order I should do it in, but I'll just do it without placing any of the dropper hopper complicated stuff yet, and I'll show you guys how to place that very last. It may be a lot of strange and rebuilding stuff that you had already placed, and in survival that's not very nice, because like you have to go mine it and it wears down your tools and stuff. But I think explanation wise this is probably the easier way to do it. So that pulse will go there, and also up and around here and there, and so lots of these blocks you're gonna have to remove, so don't use anything like obsidian to build with these blocks, because it will take a very long time to remove. So go ahead and set that to 3 ticks, and any type of rail you'd like. It could be this type of rail, or you can use this rail, or you could use the powered rail, and the rail there just updates that dropper, and so the item will go through, power all of this, and the item will go back, so you get like a pulse. And what happens here is this very interesting thing that I found, which is if you place this here and that just like that, so this repeater and these dust go there, and so what happens is when the piston tape is done, let's see if I can kind of show you guys how this would be like. So if I power that really quickly and go ahead and replace all of these in a way that'll show you guys, so the pistons are aligned like this. Then what happens is this pulse right here will come through and go ahead and grab that block, as you can see. But this piston also retracted, which means that this right here is all powered, and so all of these would be pretty much ready to retract. And then when as you can see right here, this piston retracted, so I'm actually reusing the orange circuit. Pulses go back down through the orange circuit and retracts, and it'll just do some weird things for now because it's not really like lined up properly, but that's the general idea. And so the blocks will be here. These pistons here will extend. Then I send another pulse up here and retracts all of that. So it would be in this position, and it would grab one more pulse here. So this is how the pistons would be ended up. And what I do is actually the exact same thing. I just have to power that dropper one more time. So if I power that dropper one more time, you see this right here extends. But something very interesting happens. This block right here gets in the way of this piston and does not allow the piston to retract right here, as you can see. And that makes sure that the pulse does not go back through the orange circuit. And that is how I got the reuse of the orange circuit to only work once, with this piston here staying extended one of the times, but when the blocks were not here, that piston would retract. So if I do everything again, actually everything would just get messed up, because that's how these things work. So just ignore everything that happened there, and if you're in survival, you don't exactly have to do what I did, because that will just waste you a lot of time. And so that is the mechanic of the quad extender. Now, for reasons, because we have to wait for the orange circuit, we do need quite a bit of delay. So we go ahead and make this loop, and this comparator loop will slowly lose its signal strength when this repeater turns off, and give us plenty of delay to work with. And it's actually timed just right. If we had more delay, it would just be too late, and if we had less delay, then it would just fire too soon. So this is the exact right amount of delay that we need. Now what we need is a regular piston and a block of sand. Here we go, block of sand. And this is where this furnace comes in handy. Go ahead and place 2 strong items, like something in there and something in there. And the bottom item should be made out of, like, entirely out of wood, because I don't think you can place certain items in the bottom part of the dropper. So wooden tools in the bottom part of the furnace, and not wooden tools in the top, and that will go into this comparator there, right here. And place a slab here, because this piston will retract and we don't want the pulses to mess up this piston, and a block here. So when that is all done, a pulse will go here and fire this tiny little bottom double extender. Now we need that to go twice, and the way I got that to work is with very interesting dropper hopper things. So place a 2-tick repeater there, a torch and another torch, and a repeater, which my bet would be 2 ticks. Underneath, yeah, if you see there, 2 ticks. There we go. So 2 ticks here and 2 ticks there, and I'm just gonna remove that torch for now. I'll work with that later. But what happens here is we place a dropper pointing up and a dropper pointing to the side, and a hopper here and a hopper there. And no, I got that wrong. And a dropper here. There we go. Oh, point the dropper that way. Okay, the server is very strange with, like, placing droppers. So there we go. So this dropper will send an item here, and this one will send an item here, this one will send an item here, which will go down to there. And so this right here is powered, and well, the pulse will go through, and the item will eventually go up here, go to this hopper, and cut this signal off. So it'll cut the signal off and power again. So because this is a hopper, it'll give a 3-tick pulse. This will turn off, and this piston will extend again, giving a pulse. Then that pulse will go into this repeater, and the next time around, there will not be an item, because this line here powers this dropper here, and you fill up this dropper with a bunch of snowballs. Just go ahead and fill it all the way up with snowballs or stackable items, but snowballs I think is like the best bet here, because it's not too many, because they only stack to 16, and they work very nicely in this situation. And then the top dropper, you need 3 not stackable items, like the wooden axe or the swords or whatever. And then what you want is different than the snowballs. If you're using something like stone in here, and you just fill this all the way up with stone, then you need different items in here. So make sure you have 36 items in here, like that. And so what ends up happening is this will fire, then this will fire, then this will fire. And the reason why we fill this all the way up is so none of these items can go down. If I fill this all up with dirt, and I use dirt up here, then this dirt would start flowing down, which is not what we want when an item goes through. So make sure you have different items and just fill up this bottom dropper so none of these items can go down. And the reason why we do this is so that the signal strength is strong enough to cut off this furnace. and I'm just gonna make sure everything's right. And so that's how it works, and so that's how this loop works. And so this will get 2 pulses. This piston right here will fire twice, and that's exactly what we need. So a torch here, and I'm gonna disable this repeater really quick because that will give a 1-tick pulse, and that would have fired a few things. So there we go. That is the circuit, and I'm actually going to show you this because it's very nice. So I'm just gonna move this up. So this, imagine this right here is what you had for the piston tape. So the piston tape is about to fire, and I'm gonna go ahead and fire that. So the redstone block is going to go around, and I can actually remove these blocks too. So when the redstone block comes around, it will power that dropper. So that dropper powers, and you see here the pulse does go through, and it retracts everything down to there. Now, if I send one more pulse to that dropper right there, just like that, you see it retracts, and the quad will finish itself. That is how the quad works. But to power that dropper, it's in a very, like, strange, tight little place where I can't, like, place a comparator here because it would redirect that dust, and I need quite a lot of delay. So that's where the minecarts come in. It's the only way I could find to repower that dropper. And so how to place the minecart. This is a very crucial part of the build, and it's also kind of difficult. So we're gonna have to remove some of these blocks. I did do most of that just to demonstrate how it works, and a lot of this will have to be removed. So go ahead and remove all of these, and if you had done this in survival, I hope it's not too much of like a too difficult, because in survival you do use up resources when you like place and remove blocks. So a little bit of an apology there. So what ends up happening here is you need when this torch fires, the item in here will eventually move up to here, then move up to here, and slowly it'll make its way along and into this minecart. The dropper will place items directly into the minecart. So you don't actually need this minecart, because you can let the item fly through and let the hopper suck it up, but droppers do place items directly into the chest minecart, and then the hopper here will take the item directly out. Then that will go into that comparator right there and refire that dropper right there. Then this hopper will feed into that minecart, and the placement of this minecart is far more important, because if you have it too close, a very strange thing happens in a few directions and locations and stuff, where the dropper will just feed it directly into that minecart, which is not what we want. We do not want this dropper to feed into that minecart. So the item will go down and around, and there's plenty of hoppers here, so that when it refires, the item doesn't keep looping over and over again. This many hoppers right here is just adding delay, so the hopper ends up here and does not like continue clocking too many times. So let's go ahead and start up with the placement of all of these droppers and hoppers. Let me get exactly where. Okay, so on top of this comparator here, place a dropper, and here you want a bunch of hoppers like so, and back here you can just go ahead and place all your repeaters back, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and go ahead and set them all to 3 ticks again, and like so. Now what we need is 2 hoppers like this. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove all of this stuff here too. So hopper pointing that way and a hopper pointing that way. Here you want a dropper pointing up and a hopper pointing that way and a dropper pointing this way and a hopper pointing that way. Make sure it's pointing that way. So we can go ahead and pretty much place the redstone that we broke back. So it's a dust there, comparator here, dust here, 3-tick repeater there, And so the placement of the minecarts, and you can go ahead and place one item in there, so that hopper. And what we also need is a block here, right there, and a comparator, and that's what powers that dropper one more time to finish off the quad. And the reason why the quad is slow is this delay right here, and there's not too much I can do about that because it's needed, because this orange circuit gets reused and you just need the delay, and when I reuse it, that's just it. You kind of have to use it. So it's a little bit of a bummer, but it's just how this thing works. And so the placement of this minecart here goes second. And why does it go second? Well, because minecarts, oh, don't forget that torch here. Well, minecarts can push each other, so this one is much more important, so place it second. And I'll explain that right now, how to place the minecarts well. So what we want here is 2 rails, and make sure they're aligned like this, going along with this. And so here you want a fence. Go ahead and grab a fence. Any fence will do. Break one of those, put a button on it, a chest minecart or a hopper minecart, but I've found a lot better results with chest minecarts, and they're also cheaper, so I definitely recommend chest minecarts over hopper minecarts. So what happens here is the minecart will move over until it hits the fence, and now it's aligned perfectly so that it just works very reliably. Go ahead and remove the rail, remove these blocks, the hopper, no, this minecart should go straight down, and you can place everything right back. So go ahead and place all your dust back, make sure nothing's missing, and go like that. Now the second minecart, which is a little bit less important. So place your 2-tick repeater there, and don't forget it, because placing it afterwards doesn't really work. And there is a rail here, so if you place another rail right here, it would like bend this rail up. So go up even higher and place your rail there. Grab a minecart and let the minecart drop down like that. Grab your blocks. If you can place it on right there, if you like aim it at that rail, you can get a block right there. And so just make sure no items like fell in, because items can do that. Check this dropper here. If any items fell into these hoppers, they would all flow and stop at this dropper. So if there's nothing in this dropper, you're good to go. Make sure you have all your torches, your dust, your repeaters, and it's ready. This door is completely done. Let's go ahead and show it closing. I do hope that this tutorial and explanational video was helpful, and I hope this made sense somehow. Kind of complicated, and I didn't really explain the quad too well, I don't think, but I mean, I'm kind of running out of time here, and my voice is very sore because I've been talking for such a long time. And so that's everything really. That's my 6x6 piston door tutorial. Everyone's on my plot right now. If I haven't said so already, I'm on the Zombachu server. Synergy, I believe it's called, and there we go. Closed nice and neat. And that's it. That's the door. Everything's done. I'm gonna go ahead and thank Nom Nom for helping me build it. Help me do the tutorial. He didn't help me build the door itself, but still, yeah. Thanks for everyone on my plot, because they're all good people, you know. They're all helpful. They help me make these videos really nice. So that's everything. There we go. Gigantic tutorial over. If you have any problems, please leave them in the description below, because I can help you troubleshoot. And so that's all. Oh, whew, I'm glad I remembered this. That would have been pretty bad. Right, I said some weird locations this dust does not update. Now there's a few things that you need to try, and that could be a piston here. And what a piston here does is updates it just like any other piston would. But let me check here. I think you need to do one quick change. If you do place a piston there, make sure you change this right here to a slab, and that does a bunch of weird things and will probably break your quad for a while. So go ahead and fix your quad. So that piston right there can help with some locations. And if that doesn't help, go ahead and try 2 rails like that. Those rails can help update that piston right there too. So that is all the advice I can give you in this video. That is pretty much everything. It's all good and done. So also the piston to update there that I was talking about just a second ago, this one here. If you have a piston here, make sure you're in 1.8. In previous versions, I don't think the piston here helps, but it does work in 1.8. And the rail should work pretty much everywhere. So 2 rails here works, and I did break some stuff. Not good. So now you know. Actually, you do need these slabs no matter what, because those slabs can power that hopper if you don't have a slab. So that's good, I remembered. Make sure this right here is a slab. And so there we go. That is the door done. Let me go ahead and close it. And it didn't work, I don't think. Yeah, it didn't work. Did I forget a block? Yeah, I just forgot to place a block. So if I place a block, it should open. I just forgot to go ahead and set it up right.